We are alive, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us today. Ooh, always exciting. Markets go up, markets go down. I always love that question. I see it frequently. Like, oh my God, what's happening? Why is the price going down? Or why is the price going up? Oh, buying for up and selling for down. That's usually what happens. A cascade of events from some type of human emotion. Now, because these markets are fairly illiquid, they are all connected to one another as well. The decentralized exchanges are kind of a prominent idea if you understand how they work. But let's start by taking a look at Bitcoin. Boom, here we are. Okay, so on the 6 hour, we'll start with last night's headline. Yesterday, yeah, look, El Salvador is buying crypto, like it's the future of currency everywhere. And they bought right at that particular moment of the high. Now, what's interesting, and this is always kind of one of the fun parts about learning, right? Getting it exactly right is really never the goal because that's almost impossible. There are aspects of any good thesis that you can pretty much strategically rely on, and then there are other areas which are harder. For instance, phase C and phase D, where the spring is and any trading range is usually a little bit volatile and dynamic, and the end of phase E is actually also that same way. So here's phase C, phase D, and then here we're moving into phase E most likely. So when we go and we look around the rest of the markets, we can get a pretty decent ascertain of what's going on. Now, the president of El Salvador just tweeted, and he said, hey, we bought more Bitcoin, which is great. It's generally what you want to do, find a consistent strategy, although buying one day and then buying the next day is not a great kind of time strategy function, unless that's what they already have planned out. So because of this, we could make let's make a conspiracy theory judgment first off. Oh my God, are they trying to shake out El Salvador, like the powers that be? Or like, oh, ruffle the feathers, look, El Salvador lost a bunch of money the day after they bought Bitcoin. Maybe. We could make any story up, really. But these markets are based off buying and selling. To get to the top of this SOS here already, that's 100% gain for Bitcoin ish, right? Let's say 80, and don't go exacts here. I don't want to be exact because I can't get it right. Let's just be close with our assertion. So here with Ethereum, this is actually quite normal. We often see these breakouts above the box and then to retest the top of the trading range. So this trading range that we left here for Ethereum is actually what we've seen this before. For those of you that were studying with us back here, we saw a few of these where you'd break up and then come like pretty hard back down to the top of the previous trading range like this. Right, so here's the SOS, boom, and then you formed a larger trading range before the final kind of blow off top. So I suspect that this is what we're going to see. We're going to see volatility within the final SOS and LPS ranges because that's common, and it's designed to shake people out and allow the final moves of positions to be taken before we see these big kind of blow off moves. Now, the 1 inch here gave me a run here. Now, just for fun, because one of you guys had asked, I put the moon phases up on 1 inch. Now, again, remember what we're doing, even though I'm not looking at Bitcoin or I'm not looking at Ethereum or Cardano right this second, what we're trying to do is assess the market as a whole. One of the fun parts about the heuristic of the comp man is that every time someone's like, oh, the markets are rigged, they're manipulating it, I just get like a chuckle inside because although I'm not denying conspiracy, this is a clear fact that conspiracy happens, and it happens on a daily basis. It's just two people deciding to do something, well, I guess you could say illegal. That would like really put it in the bracket of conspiracy, but effectively it's when any two functioning parties collaborate. Now, what's interesting here is we're in a universe. So I always make this assertion. So what we've done is we've actually opened up the moon phases. Now, a lot of people are like, oh, look, the moon phases kind of mark each one of our accumulation bottoms, which is really an interesting thing. But correlation and causation are not measurable necessarily, right? So you'd be like, oh, look, it was the top of the full moon and down we came. And over here, there was a full moon and it kind of went down here too. So it's really easy to make assessments that are incorrect because it looks like, and we want to connect patterns that are not necessarily there. So for instance, let's look at the rest of the 1 inch time. Oh, see, here's a full moon, but it doesn't go down. But shortly after it went down, and then it was at the bottom of the new moon, and then the bottom of a new moon, And then the bottom of a new moon, well, actually the bottom of the new moon seemed to be pretty consistent. Like bottom of a new moon, bottom of a new moon, bottom of a new moon. Anyways, right? So that's where we start to like try to create patterns that may not necessarily be there. Because you're like, oh, here we'll look, a full moon represented one of the cycle tops. A full moon here, again, was kind of in the middle before it went down. So again, what ends up happening is we usually create patterns that aren't necessarily there. So when we see 1 inch, right, and what I'm trying to do is explain a meta thesis. So for any of you like, oh, this guy talks so much, just try to find another channel that just hypes up price. I'm here kind of focusing on macro thesis. That's like my favorite thing. I love concepts. So because of that, what I'm looking at and have been looking at, you'll remember, scale and variance, ladies and gentlemen. Where do we see these repeating patterns, and are we tricking ourselves? Right, this is the question we're going to ask on 1 inch right now, is are we tricking ourselves? Did we, right, because here I'm in a position still. It looked like it was going great. Everything was looking green, and I kind of expected a bounce off of the top of this area because of the point of control is right here. But there's nothing to say that we don't get that point of control bounce like this. And here's the fun part, remember? What we're doing is continually looking at different variations of the same thing, human psychology and the purchasing of assets, fundamental or not. Just even in the midst of a bull market, you can rely on speculation to some degree. Now, we can look at other key areas in the market later that have performed extraordinarily well, Solana being one of them, where you basically had vertical straight up after it left the box. Whereas here with 1 inch, we can definitely see that there's more weakness in the market in 1 inch than there is in comparison with Solana. So fundamentally speaking, the kind of like the support bridge for each of these assets is clear in these moments. The fact that 1 inch came below this widening megaphone pattern now, I'm like, oh, that's no fun. But does it invalidate the thesis? And that's really the key question right now that I think we want to discover, is that when we see a moment like this and it breaks the megaphone pattern, it's still around the point of control. Now, if we can't get back above this, this could be disastrous for 1 inch. And again, this is always one of the difficult parts, is because you're dealing with scale and variance. I don't think this is the case, what I'm about to go over, but you could make the case that we got phase C wrong, and that this is actually phase C over here as an upthrust and then distribution. So this is one of the fun parts about scale and variance. The most important part about the trading range, I believe, more than phase C and phase D often, is actually how you play above the top of the box. And because we've seen so much momentum in things, okay, here's another great example. Let's look at Avalanche to try to continue out this idea of, did we get it wrong? So Avalanche, beautiful, beautiful execution. Entries were perfectly timed. Movement out of the box, well, that, and you should always be investing, but I'm just talking from like a time perspective. I want to make sure we know where we are in the market, because I want to remain confident that the bull market will continue, not stop all of a sudden because I got something wrong. So that's always an important question to ask, is did I get it wrong? And I still don't think we've been bullish this whole time, even though we could see we could see dips down. I've been bullish. I think we're going to be bullish till around December. So when we're asking that question, we have to ask questions that go against what our initial thesis was. So this could be a breakdown, like, oh, you're like, oh, this is a rounded top for Avalanche. But then you remember, well, wait a second, we like to study. So instead of just making stuff up, let's go back and study. Let's look at what some of these reaccumulation trading ranges look like. Where is it? This one here, the reaccumulation ranges. So reaccumulation schematic 1, this is a variation of an accumulation schematic. They're usually much shorter, and they usually often end up on the outside of a larger accumulation schematic. So it's usually the SOS and the backup that you kind of see in this area. So knowing that, this is what I think we'll see. I think that this is a dip below the box for the final parts of a reaccumulation before we go much higher on Avalanche. I'm going to leave it drawn like that. And here's why I think so. If you look at what Solana did, it had, again, Solana's had a very strong streak. Sam Bankman-Fried is a rock star. You know what they're building has the community to really withstand the pressure. Anyways, here we saw a reaccumulation schematic that looked like it could have been a rounded top before breaking down. Now, this secondary part here, these lower dips below the box before going higher, actually happen frequently, but Solana was just uber bullish. As soon as it hit that, effectively we could call the spring of the reaccumulation, it jumped up very quickly. Whereas here with Avalanche, again, we're seeing the weakness in the market. This is it's relatively early on, and this is the question: did this invalidate the trading range, or does it become a part of it? And this is one of the fun parts. Is I believe that this is what it's going to do. It's going to jump up above the box and go like this and continue higher. So just leave that drawn there. Let's go back to 1 inch and kind of finalize this question. Does this drop into the point of control invalidate the overall bullishness of the point of why one would think this, like, or not screw entries. Like, it doesn't even matter if you're making a market entry. I think just understanding, I think the thesis here is so important. Make an entry or not, but at least pay attention to the market and figure it out. You can do this. That's why I suggest doing it with multiple charts and multiple assets throughout the bull market, just so you can really refine how often did this work out and how often was it invalidated, and what did the invalidation of that thesis look like. So we have enough data to decide on the macro scale, at least, are we correct that the bull market's going to continue for the next 3 to 4 months, or are we incorrect? Did something just happen that invalidated that? Like, so why or what and how would that happen? Again, I believe ultimately still very bullish. That's where I'm sitting. I think that this little POC test here for 1 inch is going to probably quickly jump back up to the top of the box, and it's going to be followed by probably an array of other assets to do the same thing. So here with Bitcoin, it's very likely that what we're witnessing is actually a retest of the horizontal trading range, because that's what this is. This red line that I'm drawing here now. This red line is actually the top of this smaller smaller trading range. And again, it happened here too. And this is the fun part, is that you're seeing these stepping stone horizontal trading ranges take place. And repeating your education happens on a daily basis. I don't think you should be trading these moves. I think you should be generally focused on large macro thesis investments. But I like to watch this stuff for a few reasons. I'm trying to gain as much confidence in understanding the macro market cycle as possible. So what's a bottom? What does the pandemic look like? And what does the top look like? In 2017, the top was actually pretty obvious. Even back here in May, I think it was an intermediary top, but looking back, it was pretty obvious. There's a few key signs. Now, what's funny is there's actually a sign last night that we're not at a top, but at least near a point of greed. I made a post. I was like, look at the badass ice bath I'm buying. So for those of you that don't know, I love ice baths. I posted the ice bath that we're ordering. We're getting it shipped down here. It's like a $10,000 ice bath or something ridiculous. Like, what am I thinking? That doesn't make any sense. But I fucking love ice baths. And that was exactly last night. That's kind of what a moment of greed would look like, right? But it's other people that will be doing it too. It's not just like a THO moment of greed. There's actually multiple areas of market greed. So we can measure, well, how are other people living their lives, like dealing with capital asset influxes and changes. So I don't believe we're at a top. An ice bath isn't a top. That's still like a pretty low level item, but it's something I love and it means a lot to me. So I thought it was funny to see this this nice chunk of assets come onto the market. But more importantly, when we look at the fundamentals, every single one of these drops that happened in the last 24 hours, they've been bought up, at least on Bitcoin. And we're using Bitcoin as our North Star and guiding light for how the market is functioning overall. So because we're seeing this drop in market, or like well, first, there's actually a few other fun parts too that we could go over. A shout out to Lark. I love Lark. Lark made a tweet last night talking about how the funding rates were at the highest they've been in a while, and everyone's going long. It's bullish. I was like, I was about to write, like, Lark, actually, that's usually a bearish sign, is because when there's so much open interest, it means even the people that don't know how to use leverage are starting to take leverage positions, and awfully often in the 5 or 10x where they're about to get liquidated. So funding rates are often another one of these kind of fundamentals that show that the market is overheated, not at the top necessarily, but at least overheated. So when we're looking at another fundamental kind of conjecture point here, which is the amount of Bitcoin balances on exchanges, what's unique about this is it's a real it really focuses on volatility as a function. So every time a massive amount of Bitcoin gets taken off the open market, there is less Bitcoin that's for buying and for selling in the public domain. And because of that, what you end up seeing is a much more volatile price movement. Whether it's up or down, it's almost irrelevant. The volatility of that moment in time increases. So as the Bitcoin starts to leave the exchange, only a small amount of it needs to leave for the price to dramatically drop. But what we've just witnessed is the price drop and the amount of Bitcoin on the open exchanges leave. It's when the other direction happens that we would want to start to potentially change our thesis from a fundamental standpoint, which is that the market, if you look back in May too, it's when the amount of Bitcoin on the open market jumped up significantly on May 14th specifically, that it became a sentiment of distribution. So if we go back in time, we look at Bitcoin, we go to that May 14th date. We're still, nice. We're still seeing downside in the markets here, getting that buffer. But let's go to May 14th and point it out. Here it is. Bang. This was May 14th. Sorry. March, April, May. I was pointing the wrong way. That's March. Huh? May, yes, 14th. So this is May 14th on the markets, and you can see it here on the price point too. So here, the moment that this big chunk of supply came in, that's when the markets really started to tank. Or not tank, but drop into the supply, right? And here we see the price going up, marked by this gray line, and we should change the colors here, followed by this orange line here, dropping down significantly as the price goes up. And now today, this price drop was actually preceded or followed by, a drop in Bitcoin on the open supply. So this is ultimately bullish still as well. It's when it's going the opposite way that you should be a bit more concerned, when the amount of Bitcoin in the open exchanges is going up, not leaving. That means there are big interests still buying up the Bitcoin, taking it off of the open exchange, and the price is less relevant because the next volatile move is likely going to be to the upside because they're still buying and removing from the open market. So that's a really important characteristic to pay attention to. So I got a few more things I want to go over, but let's drop in for a few questions. I know everyone's probably feeling super emotional. So let's see what those emotional questions look like. And I'm actually going to put my sunglasses on. This is great. Okay, sunglasses for question time, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, here we go. Alex Kusher says, make sure you smash the like, ladies and gentlemen. Alex, you make a great point there. I think everyone, I support Alex's message. Go ahead and give the video a thumbs up. DJ Wisdom drops in and says, hello, good to see you, DJ Wisdom. Great to have the Bear family in the house. I'm excited to drop in and see what you guys are thinking today. Let's take a look here and go a bit further. Whoa, what? Oh, yes. Okay, here we go. Okay, let's go through a few of these ideas. I heard someone sold $17 million in a Cardano market order. Is this true? I'm not sure if it's true. You could definitely do something like that, and people do that by accident. I call that a fat finger cut. Yeah. KP Monty says, how about world governments telling the people to stay in line or else? I live in Costa Rica. We have no army here. The last time the government got out of line with the people here, we just blocked all the roads and economic commerce came to a standstill. Everything came to a standstill. And then eventually the government's bent. So my suggestion would be to try to find governments that have less guns than the people and live there. That's one of the reasons why I live in Costa Rica. Okay, let's take a look at a few more. Not a full moon now, it's a new moon. I'm pretty sure it was the other way, judging by the color of the moon. The black moon is the new moon, and the white moon is the full moon. So yeah, we just had the end of a full moon, which is not the new moon in its entirety. Anyways, it's just a thought there. Should we panic buy anything that dropped dramatically? Again, I think that the best methodology here to ignore the day-to-day noise is just pick a particular day in the month and not try to catch bottoms, because you're going to get yourself too emotionally involved in the price fluctuation and did you buy it properly, when really over time it basically makes no difference. We went over a really great study, we should probably go over it frequently, but it's called, well, there's two. The Best Investors Are Dead is a fantastic piece by Fidelity, just talking about how long-term accumulation is one of the best performers. And then also one is called How to Time the Markets, which was another piece, but it was by Schwab Investment. And it compares people who bought the exact bottoms versus the people who just bought on a consistent basis whenever they had extra capital. And most people usually have extra capital somewhere related to a monthly basis or bi-weekly basis. And that just relying on that is actually performs only a few percent under had you tried to buy every bottom. And you remove all that emotionality and it just becomes technical and logical. And those steadfast moments of technical logical behavior in an emotional marketplace will actually bode you significantly better results for your own well-being. And that's really what you're looking for in life, is health and wealth. So remove that emotion, just pick the days that you have that extra capital, and I would just execute. Black moon is new moon. Yes, exactly. That's what I'm saying. New moon is the bottom of the cycle. We didn't see the full moon attached at the top, but definitely look like here, just for fun. We'll go over that again because I think it's kind of an interesting conjecture point that we were making, which is, and here's how you'd look at it again. Remember, part of our macro thesis is that the nature of human consciousness is scale invariant. So would we recognize other aspects of that if we were to include other parts of nature, including the full waxing, waning, and new moon? That's kind of the question, is do you see that? Now, again, we could see the potential that here, look, right around the new moon, we were seeing, usually just a few days before, it looks like, we would see the kind of the dramatic emotional undertones of a darker moon, a lower price. And there's nothing wrong with making that conjecture. There's not enough data. And that's because, look here, look, it looks like a low, 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 right? Okay, and another low. So all the new moons seem to somewhat clearly mark a buying opportunity. Maybe don't even pick. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Just every month in the new moon, apparently, that should be the time of the month that you buy more assets. Why not? And this is what makes investing so fun, is that really the macro thesis says it should be a ritual or a religion for you. Well, maybe not too religious. You shouldn't be too religious about your emotional investments. But what I mean by religious is it's that something you do frequently on a consistent basis, not like a spiritual thing. Like, I think if you go to the gym every day and you do deadlifts, you're going to like this one. I think that that's your religion. I think that deadlifts is a part of your religion. Right? Anyways, all hail the deadlift. What was the point of this? So yeah, making macro thesis conjecture around moon cycles, because we already believe the nature of consciousness to be scale invariant, so we expect the market to do something similar. And this is actually a good conjecture. So for now, what we'll do is we'll actually run this thesis out. You can go back and look at others here just for fun. Let's do it on Ethereum. We'll just take a look. Here's the Ethereum moon phases. Let's go out on the 6 hour too to look a little clearer. And again, the conjecture point here is that at the start, here you go. Okay, so at the start, you're getting what appears to be something that's actually pretty consistent. And it's a great theoretical question. If we know that technical analysis is mostly the function of human nature, consciousness, buying and selling, fear and greed based off those things, would the new moon or would the dark moon bring in a more emotional person, which might end up in lower prices? And it actually looks like that has some validity. Now, again, it's too premature. I feel very confident that if we were to go back throughout the entirety of Ethereum here, we're going to see some points where that doesn't line up, because we've been in a bull market each time, we've been in a bull market this whole time. But we'll keep going back to the very beginning of the bull market here, just for fun, and say, well, what would happen if you bought every new moon? Well, everything actually looks like it did okay. But here, again, new moon at a high, right? So we can find pieces, new moon at a high at that moment. Right, so we can clearly find times when that doesn't fit. But again, if you just go, hey, look, I'm going to find a consistent strategy. Buying every new moon sounds fun to me. I like the universe, so like to pay homage to the universe and markets and to find some consistent strategy, I'm just going to buy every new moon. This is amazing. That's a strategy you should definitely play out through time, and I guarantee it will like achieve the results you're looking for. So, you know, don't hesitate to make what you're doing fun and explore. You know, technical analysis is it's not perfect. We have up and down. That's it. It's a two direction market. And on the macro, it's even more important is how long have we been going up for? Well, the entirety of the market, right? Look at Ethereum here with all these moon phases. Every one of these moon phases, you should buy at a full moon or a new moon. That's like about once a month ish, and you'll do great. We've figured it out, ladies and gentlemen. Just buy every new moon and eventually you'll become a multimillionaire. The joys of conjecture, contemplation, and a little bit of thinking outside of the blocks. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, look at that wick for Ethereum that we saw come down there too. Dang, we came all the way down to the top of the previous box, right? So here, let's take these moon phases off for now. Boom. So here we were, top of the box, pretty much all the way down to that. Wicked it, big scam wick, and then jumped right back up. And again, just a quick look-see for what how the wicks on Bitcoin looked too. Whoa, wait. Yes, so those big wicks, look at this. Look how they came back down to almost test the top of the previous trading range. This is very common. You know, this actually to me looks healthy. So I feel very confident the bull market will continue. We tested, boom, and now looks like the volume will actually test the top of the previous trading range here. So yeah, everything looks great to me. I'm still very bullish. Not people call it a scam wick. I would call that an LPS. That's a last point of supply test, is what that is. So here's the SOS, here's the LPS, right there. And this is nice too, because even though we had a very quick low on the 6 hour in this crazy wick here, it very quickly returned to the top, and it looks like the whole market has done that. Ethereum is right back above the box. 1 inch, let's look at the wick on 1 inch too. Just let's get some real information on that wick status. Oh yeah, look at that wick there. Jeebus. Let's see, from the top there, that's a 40% down for that wick. Woo! Yes, liquid markets, ladies and gentlemen, and moons. Let's take a look at Avalanche's wick just for fun too. I use the area chart because it gets rid of a lot of the noise like the wick, and I can just stay focused on where our actual closes are for the day. But look at that wick, almost all the way down to the top of the trading range. That's great. That's a nice thing to see. And look how it reacted with the VPVR too. This nice chunk of volume that's taken place, we fell right into that, and we've jumped almost right back up to the top of the trading range. Okay, let's take a look at Solana and Ethereum, and then we'll go into a few more of your guys' thoughts and questions. We'll do a longer episode today. I had some meetings that I was supposed to be getting to, but because I don't have to, we're just gonna roll in and look at Solana. Okay, Solana on the 6 hour. Solana barely even dipped on that one. Look at that. It's almost an instant recovery. It just goes to show how much interest there is here. But also, keep in mind, look at the amount of supply that came into the market there. We're definitely going to want to keep an eye on Solana. I bet you what something would be likely to see is like this. But if again, it could make a very short trading range here and just keep going. We're not. Oh, thank you, speaker, for turning off. Okay, so Solana up at $180. What a quick recovery. Again, it just goes to show the interest in the marketplace. Again, in a comparison with 1 inch, it's just nowhere near the driving interest as there is with Solana. But then again, look at this, the thesis, clearly fundamentals make a difference. Like the fundamentals of Solana we knew are stronger than 1 inch, right? But 1 inch is behind, so it gives us time to address and find those as well that are a little bit behind, a little bit slower in the reaction time. But look at this, as soon as we left the box here for Solana, it's just been absolute fire, which is fantastic. Link, also let's take a look at the wicks on Link just to see. Yeah, all the way back down to the point of control for the wick on Link as well here before kind of closing right back near the top of the trading range. Everything looks bullish to me still. I do believe that this is an LPS that we've witnessed. just testing the supply line and probably getting a lot of the open funding rates that were there too. Okay, let's take a look at a few more guys' questions. We're gonna do a longer episode today, so thank you guys all for chilling and sticking around with us. I was not copying Crown with moon phases at all. Someone asked the question, so I looked. Crown would actually be copying TradingView. Looking at moon phases has been an option in TradingView longer than, well, actually, hold on. Using moon phases and market trading has been around longer than either Crown or I have been alive. So that's just bullshit. It's just clear and factual nonsense that you shared. That's what that is. That would be like saying, oh, you copied Wyckoff. It's like, no, Wyckoff saw something that consciousness is sharing with us. Don't be an idiot now. I'm just gonna look. This guy's an idiot. David, you're not allowed to make comments anymore because you've shown a clear lack of understanding of how things work. Okay, hold on. I just want to make fun of this guy for a second because it's ridiculous. I'm sorry, David, you brought it on yourself, but what you just said is ridiculous. This mother just said, I'm copying someone for looking at the moon phases. Think about how stupid that is. The moon phases, things that we have tracked as a society for maybe even hundreds of thousands of years. Who knows how long humans have been around, but at least 13,000 years. The Mayans, the Aztecs, the Hindus all have extraordinarily accurate measurements of the planets and the moons. And this guy thinks we're copying some fucking YouTuber. Oh my dear God, no. That's not how things work, friend. I'm sorry. Jeez. Well, that was good. That was good for a good laugh. Okay, let's look at the next thoughts and questions. Let's see. Any potential change of course for Avalanche bull thesis? Nope. I'm sitting on the exact same sentiment. Yes, and Ethan says moon phase trading used to be used by JP Morgan. No, I know this is, but hold on. Just the moon phase is like us tracking what happens to human emotion. That's what technical analysis is. We've said this hundreds of times. And this guy thinks, okay, that was good. I bet you that guy's not even on the channel anymore. He just left. I copy the sun, I rise every day. Yeah. Oh my God, you're a forger. You're a fraud. Okay, that was great. That was great for a great laugh. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm glad we got to hide there. Okay, let's take a look at a few more of your guys' thoughts and questions. I gotta figure out how to use this stuff. Oh, there we go. There, we should pause it. That's there we go. Ancient moon boys. Yes, exactly. Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking. Embedded Next Gen says, I always sell when my mother mentions Bitcoin. That's not another, like in small amounts. It's a great strategy. Just take profits every time you find your grandparents asking about Bitcoin or something. Here's a funny thing. People say what to take profits into. This is why most people fail. Is because I think it's one of my favorite quotes that I've come up with. Investing is trading dollars for assets, and trading is trading assets for dollars. Technically, the people who have a lot of money, they don't want to trade their assets for dollars. They want to trade their dollars for assets and actually acquire more assets. Look at the way Michael Saylor's not like, oh, I'm taking profits. Fuck, it just wants more of those assets. And that's actually how the big boys play, and you should probably, to some degree or another, copy that. Right? I think it was Picasso, or I guess Banksy more recently said the best or great artists, good artists borrow, great artists steal, effectively. So understanding the nature of like, hey, if someone like Michael Saylor is just only buying, why am I selling? That's a good question to ask yourself, right? Because, oh, I don't have enough money, I should take profits so I have more money, but more money to buy what? Because the people that have more money, they have more money to buy more assets. Anyways, that's a fun one. Hi, Arcane Bear. I went all in ETH up on the dip. Should I be worried? What's ETH up? You've been telling you took a leverage position? Yeah, you should be worried. Um, I'm assuming you shouldn't do those things. Actually, I try to tell everyone, if you're new to these ecosystems, you definitely should not be leverage trading. It's a great way to lose money when you have such a clear path to success with the investment thesis. Like, why screw yourself over and lose money when you have a guaranteed path, guaranteed path to success if you just follow a simple strategy? Why would you want to complicate that? I mean, that's one of the reasons why we do this, is I try to help people understand that, look, I made a lot of mistakes doing that. Here's what works. Buy every new moon, buy once a month, and just ignore the prices. That works best. Using leverage is a horrible idea, especially for beginners. And the way you asked that question, you definitely sounded like a beginner. Now, could you get it right and make a little bit? Sure, but that's luck for you, it sounds like. Yeah, anyways. Let's take a look at a few more. Yeah, all in. Oh, do you have any good books to recommend for learning about meditation? Oh, interesting question, Benjamin. I don't recommend any books. I just recommend meditating. So one of my favorite forms of meditation is walking and just enjoying the scenery and nature, whether it's a beach or a park. That's a great moving meditation if you don't like sitting. Just sitting though, you really want to focus on, I guess you don't want to focus on anything. You just want to let everything happen as it is. And that's what's worked best for me. Naval Ravikant, I think, explained it really succinctly with our digital generation, that meditation is almost like when you close your eyes, you get like an email inbox. And in that inbox, there's some great important conversations and communications that you should be continuing with your brain. And a lot of it's spam, right? So you close your eyes and it's like checking your inbox. And you got to go through your inbox, and a lot of times, if you haven't checked it, you got a ton of stuff you got to go through, and you might want to even backtrack to make sure you didn't miss anything that's potentially hyper valuable for you. So every day when you close your eyes, if you close your eyes for an hour, you're going to have all these thoughts arise, all this crazy shit that goes through your mind. You're going to think of things you should do, and you should just sit there and do that for about an hour. If you can do that for an hour every day for at least 30 days, you will change your life. I guarantee it. But it takes a lot of dedication. I wouldn't suggest any books because it's actually really simple. The hard part is just you sit there and you close your eyes and you do not get up for an hour. You can put your hands up, you can stretch your legs if you want to, do whatever comes to mind, but then go back to like, okay, I should breathe. You find out you forgot to breathe for like 10 seconds or something ridiculous because you were thinking about what you should be doing. You're like, oh yeah, normal human functions, like we need air. Anyways, meditation I think is best done by just sitting, and it's almost like checking an email inbox. Just let all of those ideas come through, like delete. Oh, there's something valuable. Put that over there. Do that. Delete. Oh, more valuable things I need to accomplish, or ways to look at an idea, a new perspective, whatever it might be. It's one of my favorite ways to go. Quote from JP Morgan says, anyone can be a millionaire, but to become a billionaire, you need an astrologer. That's an interesting JP Morgan quote. I definitely think that there is a much higher level of interest in understanding the thesis of scale and variance. Like fundamentally, that's really what our thesis relies upon, that the human consciousness and the nature of consciousness of the universe is like one thing. Like the mycelium looks like the internet looks like your brain tissue, looks like the universe at scale. And I think that this function is really what certain forms of astrology or different aspects of like human design or Myers-Briggs take into account. Like you really only have so many options. No matter how you look at that scale, the options actually repeat themselves. So you're getting a very similar context. It's almost how like on the keyboard when you go C, D, F, G, A, B, C, D, F, G, you just keep repeating this cyclical pattern of around 7 notes, or 3 divided by 4 if you want to look at more simply. 3 divided by 2, which would give you that 0.666 repeated forever, which looks like a spiral. If you want to do some of the study, it's called the Pythagoras theorem. It's a lot of fun to figure out. Anyways, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. There's a whole fundamental wisdom around kind of how the universe creates or seemingly creates itself within itself. Anyways, that's another point. Any thoughts on Mercurial? We are big fans of Mercurial. That's in our venture bag. I looked at it this morning alongside Soulrise. It's It's done well. Again, just consistent accumulation. I can't. Is Solana seriously? It's back at its highs. Solana is back at its highs. Yes, go Solana, ladies and gentlemen. Solana back at its high. So that was great. Look at that. Huge amount of supply and very little bought to buy that back up too. So that's nice. That's nice to see. Let's take a look quickly here at the markets and see where everything else is kind of sitting. Yeah, I believe what you're going to get here with Avalanche is a dip below. We're going to have that, and then kaboom. And I think again with 1 inch too, it's just a real big test of our point of control. Effectively, it just needed a bigger base here. And really, what I think this is teaching me is that what we're witnessing here is there was a real, where the fundamentals make a big difference. Like look at Solana. Solana's just been performing. FTM as well was another one we added to our watch list recently. Let's go back down here. Where is it? FTM. Oh, even Fetch is actually doing pretty dang good there. Fetch at a new all-time high. Look at that. Like nothing. Go Fetch. Fetch has been one of those plays that's just been so impressive to me. This is why I don't think you should ever really take profits necessarily either. I want to show you guys. Well, this Fetch is a perfect example for why taking profits can feel like such a stupid move. So here's where we started making entries for Fetch on a pretty consistent basis. Here's where I sold most of it. And I didn't buy most of it back in. So I still have a small moon bag, thank God. But look what happened. Had you just been buying, only accumulating, just kept buying small amounts, whatever you're interested in, like this, once a month, or let's put the moon phases on there just so, actually from now on, I'm just gonna use the moon phases to represent buying monthly because it's a perfect 28-day sequence, which is pretty much what we would want to express that monthly idea. I love copying someone about moon phases. What kind of nonsense is that? Okay, so here you go. Here's all the black ones are the monthly buy cycle, and look how well that plays out over time. Right? Whereas if you buy, like if you're like, oh my God, I got a 12x, I'm totally gonna sell, and then before you know it, had you just done nothing, you're up 66x in less than 500 days. That means for every $1,000 you put in, you're sitting at $66,000 higher today. 7,000% in 500 days. Oh, actually, hold on. Let's be a little bit more. Let's be a little bit more conservative here. 40% or 40x. So every $1,000 you got 40x. Anyways, this is such a great way to look at acquisition through time. Just always acquire through time. And now just for fun, because we think it's ridiculous, why not? You can use the new moon. I've always said the 11th or the 19th. I thought were fun days. It really doesn't matter. This all washes out at the end of the day. Like you basically end up with an average, even if you bought the tops. You end up with pretty much the same average, give or take like a few percent. It really doesn't make a difference. But I think it's fun, so that's good. Let's take a look at a few more thoughts here. Coming around the bend. Crypto Keeper says, I think Elon once tweeted about moon phases and buying Doge. Yeah, the moon phases have been around for a long time. That's definitely a thing. Nobody got that from Elon Musk. What do you think about FTM? I'm a fan of FTM. I had it on my list. I just hadn't been following it too closely, sadly. I wish I had been following it closer, and I will in the next cycle. I actually will keep a very close eye on it in the next cycle. Elon Musk built his gigafactory on True North. Nice. See, it's fun to just add stuff like that. I mean, you look at the pyramids of Egypt, and these people were so highly skilled at creating architecture in line with the stars, and that had functions from different moons or like the solstice cycle. To think that we're copying nature is clearly true. Like we wouldn't live without that. We don't know how you could survive without the sun, effectively, or maybe even the moon. We have no idea how positive an effect that is. So I think that the core fundamental here is to understand that in the nature of scale and variance, it's very likely that you will see effects. And we know that it's the reason why, the full moon brings out the werewolves is because you're made out of mostly water. And when the moon waxes and wanes, it changes the emotional dialogue. Again, there's a high probability that ideas like this actually have a function. So fuck it. Just say accumulate every new moon. Mark it on your calendar. Every new moon, you look at that. That should be your monthly buy schedule from now on. There we go. We figured it out, ladies and gentlemen. The cult of moon. That's what it is. It's the cult of moon. Anyways, thank you guys all for joining us today. This is a lot of fun. We'll see you guys again in the next episode. Remember to give us a thumbs up if you like this content. We went a little longer today just so we could rant and rave. And I knew a lot of people, again, strategy still holds the same. Just general accumulation. You're going to do well. Think about the macro perspective. You want an easy path to be a multimillionaire without financial advice? Just keep trading dollars for assets, ladies and gentlemen. Good assets, though. We'll see you on the next episode.